How you doing, YouTube? It's me, Too Broke for Skill, here today with not one, not two, not even three, but 4 deck profiles. Why 4 deck profiles? Well, the Too Broke for Skill family might have seen on my Twitter that I posted a Twitter poll. This poll had an option for 4 decks. Either my White Schwarz deck, my Magic deck, my Pokemon deck, or my Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Now, craziest thing happened with that. The first time in Too Broke for Skill history, we had a 4-way tie. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, a 4-way tie. Let me get a like for the 4-way tie. So I'm going to verify that on screen right now. That was a 4-way tie. Now, I'm not going to bitch out and just pick one of the decks that I prefer. I'm going to give you guys 4 complete deck profiles. Instead of making them 4 videos, I'm going to give you guys a YouTube first. The first 4-way cross-game mega deck profile. So without further ado, let's get started, because goddamn we're going to be here a while, ain't we? First, on the roster, we got White Schwarz. We got 4 slippery boys, Hans Christian Andersen. Now, Hans Christian Andersen here, he's clearly a player. Look at that pose. Why do you think he's so smug? Well, he's so smug because he runs away from your opponent's cards. At the beginning of their battle phase, you can move this to an empty slot in your front row. Basically, free pluses, unless they got 3 things that can beat over this. But that's fine if they do, because you're an on-reverse deck. You want him to overextend to kill this guy, so you can punch him in the face later at level 1. He has a second ability where if you have like 3 or more climaxes in your bin, when you play him, you clock yourself. Or you take a damage. One of those. I don't really care. Doesn't really come up because you always get this guy turn 1. You always play him turn 1. And every time you play him after turn 1, you never get punished. Next, with the Star Wars, we got 4 magic trash cans. What does the magic trash can do? Okay. Pay 1, clock 1, on play, search a 1 or lower. Sounds broken, right? That's because it is. Gets all your combos set up. It is a beautiful card, an amazing card. I wish more sets had this card. I wish every set I played had this card. On attack, also gives 500 power to something. That's nice. You're an on-reverse deck, but your shit gets so massive, as you will see later, that 500 power isn't much of a thing. Next on the agenda, we got 3 Spiral Super Agents. Cutting into Yu-Gi-Oh real quick here. So, yes, before you ask, I am playing Spirals. Post February 5th ban list. Why am I playing Spirals? Because I'm too fucking cheap to buy another deck. I still think this deck is pretty strong. It can make some pretty absurd plays, especially with this list I made. This is like a YOLO all-out build that gets crippled by any hand trap, but, you know, if they don't have any hand trap, you probably just win, let's be honest. So, Super Agent here, you call Monster, Spell, or Trap, your opponent reveals the top card of their deck, and if you match that type, you special this dude from your hand, and then you get to pop a spell or a trap. The second effect is whenever he's summoned by a spiral effect, but generally he's going to be summoned by his own effect, and then you'll get to pop something immediately. This guy is like a play starter, a play extender, a play whatever. Like, this deck is so insane, and this is such an integral, insane part of the deck. Of course you're going to play 3. You know we're also playing that Rhoda to search this guy up whenever possible. Next, dipping into the Magic, we got 4 Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. I have dubbed this deck Thalia Turbo because this bitch is insane. For 1 and a white, you get a 2-1 with First Strike. First Strike is the most insane thing I had ever seen in a card game. You're basically cheating. For those who are unaware, First Strike lets you hit your opponent before they hit you back in combat. So if Thalia fights against a 2-2, the 2-2 dies and Thalia lives. That's right, she's playing fucking dirty. Now, so since this is Thalia Turbo, you're going to want to be playing for Thalia, despite her being a legendary creature. Yes, she is that good. She's got this second spell, or second effect, my apologies, that non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast. It kind of hurts you in your ability to play some of your supporters, but her being a 2/1 first striker in a deck that's completely trying to support her is just too good to pass up. You take that second skill and all the negatives that come with it. Now, the first one in the supporting package for Thalia, we got the Stoneforge Mystic. Now this fine bitch, she likes all the nicer things in life, such as fine wine, cheeses, expensive samurai swords you buy off of eBay from China, ninja stars you buy at flea market, whatever you want. This bitch tutors weapons when she comes into play, and equipment, I should say. That's the proper term in Magic the Gathering, but we're not getting pussy shit like armor. We're getting full forged weapons. She has a second ability that lets you drop a weapon from your hand into play for 2 mana. That's pretty good. It's very synergistic with Thalia because, you know, the non-creature spells cost 1 more to cast, and your weapons are, in fact, non-creature spells. So, you know, gets around that sort of ability. That's why we're playing 4 of the Stoneforge Mystic. Next, we're dealing with 3 copies of Spiral Tough. Your other Spiral Warrior guy. This guy is absolutely amazing going second. Similar to the Super Agent, he has an ability that checks the top deck of your opponent. That's kind of like a little gimmick of Spirals. But instead of specialing himself, Tough gets to pop a card. It's an activate effect when it's on the field. I don't mean to mislead you there. It doesn't activate in the hand like Super Agent. It activates on the field like, unlike Super Agent, I guess. Man, I'm getting so confused already, and we're not even like 10% of the way through this godforsaken deck profile. So you call a type, they reveal the type, and if you're right, you get to pop a card on the field. That is not a hard once per turn effect. So if you keep reviving this guy, keep summoning this guy, like however you want to get this guy, you can just over and over again break what you thought was an unbreakable board. So this guy's pretty sweet. Also, cute little combo. Normal summon Tough. Call, blind call, you know. Let's say you call monster. They reveal if it's a monster, you pop something. If they, like, reveal a spell, you don't, or whatever. Now you get to special the Super Agent for free, because you have that information. I believe Spiral Tough is also counted as Spiral Super Agent on the field, which is, you know, pretty good. For some other cards you're playing, as well as Super Agent in the graveyard, which is relevant for about 1 other card. Next, in the Spiral Arsenal, we got the 1 copy of Spiral Drone. Of course you're playing 1 drone. You have to play 1 drone. If drone were at 3, we'd be playing 3 drones, but drone's at 1, so we're playing 1 drone. Sad how that works. Drone, when you play it, lets you rearrange the top cards of your opponent's deck, the top 3 cards. So you're getting free information on what the top card is for the combo. Drone can also sack itself to give one of your guys a bunch of power. And Drone can also remove itself and another Spiral card in your grave to add a Super Agent from grave to hand. So, you know, 3 pretty good effects on this card. But generally speaking, the first effect is going to come up the most because that is a combo starter with Spiral Super Agent. Next, in the Spiral Boys, we got Spiral Quick Fix, the Stratos of the deck. The level 1 Machine Stratos rip Quick Fix. When this card was at 3, you could Machine Dupe and go like plus 18. But now that this card is at 1, you know, you just 1 for 1 and you go like plus 7 or something. So, it's fine. He has another ability, besides Stratosing for a Spiral Gear. If you control a Spiral Super Agent while Quick Fix is in the grave, you can pitch a card, special summon Quick Fix from your grave, which will indeed trigger its search ability. That ability is not once per turn. So, this guy's really good, and then when he leaves the field after you special summon him, you banish him, which is normally a detriment, but you will see that how I have built the Spiral deck, that you can actually work around it quite effectively. Next, in the Spiral Monster lineup, we got the one thick bitch, the Spiral Master Plan. You usually grab this card off of your double helix when you're going off to get that crisp +3. When she's on the field once per turn, you can search a Spiral Mission, and then hard once per turn effect. When she is sent from field to grave, you search a Spiral Monster and a Spiral Resort. If you draw your one of Resort, this bitch don't do anything when she dies. But the Spiral Missions that you search with her are pretty good. So even if you do draw your Spiral Resort early in your combo, you should still be fine to go off and establish a pretty good board just by looping her first effect. Next, back in the world of Magic, we got 4 Mother of Runes. Now, Mother of Runes is a cool card. First of all, she's a MILF. We kind of see a like in the like section for MILFs. Thank you. Secondly, she gives a creature protection. Now, what does protection mean? I'm not entirely sure. But all I know is that I can give Thalia protection from whatever my opponent's dealing with. So if she has something, apologies, if my opponent has something that Thalia can't punch through with first strike, I'm just like, boom, protection from, I don't know, blue or something. Oh, wha-bam, protection from green. Wha-bam, protection from red. Wha-bam. So it's pretty good at protecting your Thalias. So of course you're running 4, because it's Thalia Turbo. Next on the block, we're finally seeing our first Pokemon card. I'm running 2 copies of Blastoise. That's right, my Pokemon deck is expanded Archie's Blastoise. The purpose of this deck is you're trying to just pop this guy onto the field, turn 1, with the supporter Archie's Ace in the hole. And then this Blastoise lets you play as many energy cards from your hand as you want per turn. As many water energies from your hand onto your field during your turn. So, pretty good. Lets you run some Pokemon you wouldn't normally play because they got like absurdly high energy costs, and an extremely fun deck. I'll be able to go into those combos a little bit later once you see some more cards in the deck. Next of all, we got the supporting player to Thalia. We got her guardian angel, Sarah Avenger. Now, you can't play Sarah Avenger on the first, second, or third turns of the game. Otherwise, this bitch would be way too much. There are ways to circumvent that, by the way, that you will be seeing later. But right now, assume that this is a turn 4, 2 mana, 3/3 flying vigilance creature, which is pretty sweet. Thalia likes to command this monster to attack your opponent when your opponent's just got too much shit for Thalia to deal with. Because, you know, you just fly over them. You cheat a little bit, you know? So yeah, 2 copies of the Sarah Avenger. Next, going back to White Schwartz, we got 4 copies of Fuzzy Lumpkin's Snuffleupagus himself. Now, what does Fuzzy Lumpkin's Snuffleupagus do? He gives 1k power to your Hans Christian Andersen level 1 Climax combo, and he also, you can pay 1 to salvage the Hans Christian Andersen level 1 from your grave, and the Hans Christian Andersen needs this card on the field to even use its Climax combo, so this card is basically a mandatory 4 of in every Star Wars deck that's trying to play the Hans Christian Andersen combo, understandably so. Next up, we got 2 copies of Keldeo EX for that Blastoise deck. Keldeo is a very famous, or should I say infamous Pokemon card, being played in several decks, both as an attacker and as a supporting unit. It's able to do both roles beautifully in this deck. Its ability Rush In lets it become the active Pokemon absolutely free. And then its attack Sacred Sword, for 3 colorless, you have an attack that does 50 damage, plus 20 for each water energy on this dude. So, you know, if you load up like 9 water energies onto this guy with Blastoise's Deluge ability, 9 times 20 is 180 plus 50. That's 230, plus, you know, whatever equipments you might have in this deck. The numbers can get pretty insane with this boy. And, you know, even if Keldeo isn't the star of the show, in that match, as there are some other attackers in this deck. Russian is always a beautiful ability to get rid of statuses, to play around Guzmas, you know. Plus, this is like my favorite full art in Pokemon. Look how beautiful this card is. Look how undeniably perfect this card is. And just a quick shout out to this Blastoise art. Before people telling me, hey, too broke, how come you don't got, you know, the secret rare shiny Blastoise? Well, because shiny Blastoise looks like Barney the fucking dinosaur, and that's fucking retarded. Next up on the agenda, we got the one copy of Spiral Gear Last Resort. This is a searchable card via Quick Fix, and it is more or less an equipped spell, but for whatever reason, it's a fucking monster. So the equipped Spiral monster, cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, and your opponent cannot target it with card effects. Everyone knows that. A possibly lesser known but still abusable part of this card is you can send a Spiral card from your field other than Last Resort to the grave, and then the equipped monster can attack your opponent directly. This card equips from hand or from field, so it's kind of like a Union monster, but not really a Union monster. Let me get a plus one like in the like section for almost a Union monster. Am I right, guys? It's also searchable by Quick Fix, you know. That comes up like a lot, actually. Next, we got 4 Dark Invader Brainstorms. Now, this is a very good brainstorm. It is very reminiscent of the Love Life Sunshine brainstorm. So, Dark Invader here, he is a Rest Self brainstorm compared to the Sunshine Rest 2 brainstorm for a Mill 4 Salvage brainstorm. He also lets you assign 500 power to one of your characters when another character of yours gets reversed. So, yeah, he's pretty good. He lets you get to absurdly high numbers. Quick combo time. You crash your Magic Trash Can into something, you give 500 power to something, Magic Trash Can gets reversed, Dark Invader gives that thing 500 more power. It's absurd the plays you can make with this card. Next, we got 2 copies of the, what is that? The Triangle Plus Articuno. Now, this thing's attack, Tri-Edge, is it's the most fun you're going to have all day, because you're either going to get 3 heads and you're going to kill a Shaman, or you're going to get no heads and you can't even kill a Joltik. Its attack is 3 energy for 20 plus 40 for each heads you flip. Now, this card is a fucking game stealer. Generally, you're trying to set up fields where this is knocking out something that you only need 1 heads to get the knockout. So, namely, stuff like Joltik or stuff that your opponent bridges out onto the bench. And then the Triangle Plus ability that Articuno has allows it to take an additional prize card from your opponent, very reminiscent of the Plasma Lugia, another favorite card of mine. And this is just a beautiful foil. I just love how this card looks. That's the really nice thing about Pokemon. Really good card art. In Magic, we got 2 copies of Recruiter of the Guard. When Recruiter of the Guard enters the battlefield, you may search your library for a creature card with toughness 2 or less, put it in your hand, then shuffle your library. So, cards that are toughness 2 or less that you've seen so far. You got the MILF, Thalia's Protector. You got the Stoneforge, Thalia's Outfitter. And of course, you got the bad bitch herself, Thalia. Recruiter of the Guard is your 5th and 6th copies of any of these cards, but probably Thalia, because again, we're playing Thalia Turbo. Got 2 copies of Cerberus Snape here. He's just a level 0 reverser, and then when he reverses his opponent by battle, you could pay 1, clock yourself to salvage 1. Very reminiscent of the Akane Bomb from Rewrite, an ancient double R. But that one is ditch salvage. This is clock salvage. You're just getting free cards all the time. Plus 1 in the comments section for free cards. Now, Pokemon, one of my tech choices right now is this Black Kyurem EX. Now, old school Pokemon players may be familiar with that Black Ballista Kyurem. Its attack, Black Ballista, is 200 damage. Discard 3 energies attached to this Pokemon. So, in Standard, like 17 years ago, there was a deck with Black Kyurem EX and Blastoise. And you would just load this guy up with energies. He would shoot off his Black Ballista, and then you would get 3 more energies on your next turn, load him up again, shoot up the Black Ballista, etc., etc. This card is really interesting right now. You have to play the Lightning Energy in your deck, which can be a little bricky, especially, you know, if you prize it and you really need this. But I'm really liking this guy against Zoroark GX. If you give Black Kyurem EX a Fighting Fury belt, you will do 210 to knock out a Zoroark, and then your opponent cannot knock out Black Kyurem EX during their next turn because Zoroark's damage caps at like 210, I believe. So, yeah. Card's insane. Card's namely a tech choice. If you prize your energy against Zoroark, you probably fucking lose, but whatever. Next, the final tech attacker in the Pokemon deck, we got a Wishy-Washy GX. This is for a multitude of matchups, but namely, this is good in the Zoroark matchup yet again. Really, any special energy deck that you can't just one-shot outright. For 3 blue and 2 colorless, Wishy-Washy GX does 120, and you discard a special energy attached to your opponent's active. Zoroark decks tend to only play 4 copies of double colorless energy, unless, of course, they're the Lycanroc variant, but, you know, I'm not really trying to prepare for that. I'm just trying to prepare for the, you know, the pure Zoroark lists. Obviously, there are other decks where they're only playing 4 DCEs, so this is good against those decks. And then its GX attack is just a massive 220 damage, and then you have to move all of your energy from Wishy-Washy to your bench. But that's usually fine because you're just setting up your other attackers in the deck. Just as a quick aside for deck building tips, this card can be a Tapu Fini GX if you so desire, but it's honestly a meta call. Also, this is a beautiful full art. Let me get a like and a thumbs up and a subscribe for the Wishy-Washy full art. This Pokemon's so fucking cool. Next, breaking from the norm, we're actually playing 2 copies of Spiral Sleeper. Now, the really interesting thing about the Sleepy Boy in my build is there are actually ways to abuse your removed from play pile. So, I'm actually playing 2 Sleepers as a kind of combo extender, and because this deck has plays other than the typical Decode Talker, Super Agent, Sleeper field. So, yeah, this guy's just kind of there as like a play extender with some cards you're going to see later. And of course, you know, if you just have an average Spiral opening, this guy with Last Resort is absolutely insane. Next, we got 2 copies of the Ancient Origins Unknown. This card took me forever to find on TCG Player, by the way, because I was spelling unknown correctly. Turns out, I'm not as retarded as I thought I was, because the way you spelled this is basically, U-noun? Maybe I should just call it U-noun. So U-noun here, before you attack on your turn, you can pitch it from your bench to draw a card. Now, the nature of Archie's decks in general is you want to get yourself down to a single card in hand so you can play your Archie's Ace in the hole. It's really cool to be able to sort of store these unknowns on your bench to give you extra draws after you play Ace in the hole, both because it's an easy way to, you know, empty your hand without actually committing anything to the bench, and also because it lets you extend your combo after you play the Ace in the hole. So, I love this card. It's amazing. I've really been just sort of entranced with this card ever since I saw it in old like Vespiquen Flareon decks. So yeah, let me get a +1 for the unknowns. Next, we got a Sanctum Prelate in Magic the Gathering. So, I like this card a lot. When it enters the battlefield, you choose a number. Your opponent cannot play cards of the chosen number, play cards with a CMC of the chosen number. So generally, if you're in a matchup that you don't really know what they're up to, I like to call 15 for Emrakul because, you know, Emrakul is just a brutal game ender, and I'm not looking to lose to an Emrakul. If you kind of know their outs to Thalia, you can sort of play around that and call the numbers for their Thalia outs. But generally speaking, Emrakul is the safest thing to pick every time with Sanctum Prelate. You also out spells with an X in their cost if the total CMC of the spell on the stack is 15. So, you know, if they try to Genesis Wave for 12 or Fireball for 14 or whatever, this will stop that. So that's really nice. Next in Yu-Gi-Oh! We got a single copy of Supreme King Dragon Darkworm. This guy has a bunch of Supreme King effects we don't care about. We just care that if it's in your grave and you control no monsters, you can special summon it for free. I am playing the Dragon's Ravine Destrudo engine. This is one half of that engine. The basic idea is you special this, and then you have a free thing for Destrudo to go off of, and then you instantly make a level 7 synchro. Pretty basic. Next, we got 2 copies of Shaman EX, an absolute staple in Expanded. This card is insane. Its setup ability allows you to draw up to 6 cards when you play it from your hand, and you can also put energy on it to use its attack Sky Return, which is 2 for 30. Return Shaman and all cards on it to your hand. So that's pretty interesting, simply because if you have a Blastoise and your opponent's not really threatening you, and you just kind of want to draw cards, you're not like in a good position, you need to burn through more of your deck, you could probably afford a turn of putting 2 energies on the Shaman and just setting up, because the card, or Sky Returning, because Shaman and the energies will go back into your hand, which is where you want those cards anyway, and it didn't really spend any important energy attaches because of Blastoise, so that's a really nice interaction in this deck. Also, probably my favorite full art in the game, if I'm being honest. Look at this cute little guy. He's so smug. I love it. Next, the second half of that engine, Destrudo, the Lost Dragon's Frisian. Basically, it's a level 7 Dragon Tuner. If you control a monster with a level of 6 or less, you could target it. Special Destrudo. Destrudo loses levels equals to that monster's levels. Since he's a level 7 tuner, and we'll just use our boy Darkworm as an example here. If you controlled a Darkworm, you target it with Destrudo, Special Destrudo, it becomes level 3, and then you make a level 7 Synchro. And then when Destrudo is sent to the grave after using that effect, you bottom deck him. So that's pretty broken. Oh, Destrudo also makes you pay half your life points, but who cares if you win, right? Next, we're looking at 2 copies of Master Chief. Master Chief here is a clock reverser with an ability that when Master Chief comes into play, you pay 1, pitch 1, add a card from clock to hand, then clock yourself. It's okay. It's a discard outlet. It's mostly in here for green fixing, because you're running a green splash for very important cards, and there's actually so few green level 0s worth running that you may as well just play a couple copies of the Master Chief. Next, we got 3 copies of the Phyrexian Revoker. This guy's almost like another Thalia. He's another 2-1 for 2. Doesn't have the first strike ability, which is unfortunate, but usually another sort of thing that protects Thalia. You could like play him and call Doomblade, and then boom, they can never Doomblade your Thalia ever, ever, ever again unless they kill Revoker. But they can't kill Revoker either because, you know, you just blanked out their Doomblade. So they're gonna need something else like I can't think of another removal spell. So yeah, so I guess Doomblade's a pretty cool call for Revoker, but if you know they got like a good monster in their hand, you could always call that instead. I believe activating a spell is the ability of the spell, so I believe that is how that works. Otherwise, I guess call it Planeswalker if you really want to. Pokemon, we got 2 copies of Tapu Lele GX. Of course, a staple. You search your supporters. It's like a Jirachi, but not totally garbage. Its attack is extremely okay. It is basically Mewtwo's X-Ball attack, except you do not apply weakness or resistance. So, in a pinch, this card can be your attacker, but you never want it to be your main attacker, you know. But yeah, 2 copies of Tapu Lele, usually just for the Wonder Tag ability. Another beautiful full art. Okay, now, of course, we got 4 copies of Hans Christian Andersen. This guy is insane. He is your level 1 combo. He is a 104k, of course, salvageable by Snuffleupagus. This guy gains 2k power during your turn, and then if you have the yellow climax in play, he lets you, on reverse, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, add one of those cards to your hand, send the rest to the waiting room. That is a beautiful effect. You could add more climaxes, you could add anything, and your opponent doesn't know what it is, so they can't even hope to counterplay. It is just an amazing, amazing effect. And of course, that climax combo ability requires Snuffleupagus on field, but you're never going to not have Han without Snuffleupagus, because the deck just has so many like search and plussing utility. Usually you're going to want to use the magic trash can to get the Snuffleupagus, and then use Snuffleupagus to salvage Han, and then bam, there's your combo right there. Beautiful deck, beautiful combo, I love it. Next, we got 2 copies of the Miran Crusader. This guy's like a really roided out Thalia, but it's a dude, so I don't like him as much. Pro Black, Pro Green's pretty good. Gets you around, you know, black and green stuff, I guess. And then Double Strike is like a roided out First Strike, but again, he's a dude and Thalia is a chick. And he also costs 1 more mana, so, you know, it's not as good. Next, we got 3 copies of the Flicker Wisp. Now, Flicker Wisp here is this freaky, like, hand with a pair of wings, but that's cool. He's on our side. You ain't gotta be afraid of him. He is a 3/1 flyer, which is pretty good in its own right. You'd probably play 4 regardless. But its other ability is amazing. You get to choose a permanent on the battlefield, except for itself, and then exile that permanent, and then that card returns to the battlefield at the beginning of the next end step. The possibilities with this card are absolutely endless. You can remove your own cards, you can remove your opponent's cards, you can remove your cards. The possibilities are just actually endless. That's why I love this card so much. Next, we got 4 copies of the spell, Swords to Plowshares. This card gats one of your opponent's dudes, sends them to exile, and then they gain life equal to that card's power. Generally, you're just using this to clear the way for Thalia. It seems like a minus, I know, to heal your opponent just to deal damage, but trust me, it is absolutely worth it in some scenarios. You can also play Path to Exile, which does not heal them, but instead gives them a land, which is okay, I guess. You don't really care if they have lands, because you're just trying to beat down with Thalia. Next, on the Star Wars agenda, we got 4 copies of the Golden God. Now, the Golden God here has 2 abilities. The first is when you use a startup ability, he gains 3k power, making him a 6/5 beater, which is amazing. The next ability is he has a startup ability himself to rest 2 characters and give any one of your characters on reverse stock. An amazing card, works well as a supplementary beater next to your Hans Christian Andersen's, can give itself or even your Hans Christian Andersen's on reverse stock, and You just get insane amounts of stock with this deck, and you want insane amounts of stock with this deck because your top end has so many possibilities that are only honestly restricted by how much stock you have. So yeah, this guy's amazing. I used to only play 2 and some random 6/5 Snuffleupagus beaters, but I instantly switched over to 4 after how many games I was just trying to get this card and trying to play this card. It's beautiful. Next in Pokemon, to round out the Pokemon themselves, we got 2 copies of the Propagation Execute. Another normal art I prefer to the full art, actually, because I think the Secret Rare Execute also looks like golden dog shit. Now, these guys, when they're in your grave, you can just add them to your hand. That's broken. We're playing cards like Super Energy Retrieval. We're playing cards like Ultra Ball. We're playing cards like Computer Search. These cards make those cards absolutely free and make this game insanely easy to play. That's why we're playing 2. We also got the Battle Compressors, so we get these basically every game. Next, we're looking at 4 copies of Aether Vial. Now, I love this card. Let me get a +1 for the Aether Vial because look at this guy. I love this elf guy on the art. He's so fucking smug. He knows he's gonna fuck some shit up with his little vial of whatever is in it. Probably Aether, I guess. Now, this card is a card that ramps up. You get charge counters on it. And once you have enough charge counters on it, you can start putting in your creatures for free. That is absolutely insane because you put in 1 mana of this guy, and then you play all your creatures for free, so it virtually makes all of your creatures worth 1 mana, including the bad bitch herself, Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. Can I get a +1 for the Daffy Duck voice I just did there? That was a spotless impersonation. Other things to note, I guess, if you brick and you don't get your Thalia, you can actually put Sarah Avenger into play with Aether Vial because you're not casting, so that's pretty fresh. Next, we're looking at 1 copy of the Rogue Bitch. Now, what the Rogue Bitch does is if you have 4 or more stock, she's a 2k punch. A generic card. I've basically played it 0 times, but it was in the list I stole from Japanese Twitter, so I just haven't found an appropriate substitute yet. Next, we're looking at 2 copies of Archie's Ace in the Hole, easily my favorite full art in the game. Now, what this bad boy lets you do is play a water Pokemon from your grave if you have no cards in hand, and then you draw 5 cards. This is the supporter you're trying to go off with turn 1. That's how you get Blastoise on your bench turn 1, because Archie does not say a basic water Pokemon, it just says a water Pokemon. So the whole deck is kind of built around this card and that interaction. It's super fun. I love it. And this card just looks so good. Next, we got 1 copy of Sword of Fire and Ice. This is one of your searchable weapons you can get with the Stoneforge Mystic. This gives Thalia protection from red and blue, which is pretty cool because people like red and blue a lot because they're primary colors. So people play them a lot because they're comfortable knowing that those colors exist. You can also give it to the Mirren Crusader, so he has protection from everything but white. But that's just kind of dumb. Like, you'd much rather, like, keep the Thalia alive, because that's what you built the deck for, because Thalia is Bay. Let me get a +1 like for Thalia's Bay. Next, we got some hand traps coming up. We got 2 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring. Now, what this card does, basically, for those who do not know, if your opponent would foolish a card, search/draw a card, or special a card from the deck, you negate that effect. You can only use 1 Ash Blossom per turn, but this card is insane, and trust me, I know how insane this card is because of how much I lose to it when I try to get my double Helix off, and they just Ash it, and I end my turn. I also only have 2, so yeah. Play as many as you got in pretty much any Yu-Gi-Oh deck. That is the rule of thumb right now. Next, we got David Beckham and his Magic Soccer Ball. Now, what David Beckham here does is he he bends it like Beckham because he is Beckham. What he does is he kicks his soccer ball into your opponent's early play and shoves them into stock, assuming that your opponent is at level 2 and it is a level 3 early play. I hope that that made sense. I realize that I just said that in a really convoluted way, but you have to understand I am absolutely exhausted right now because it's 40 minutes and it's only been about halfway through. 2 copies of Professor Sycamore, my favorite full art, next to Archie's and Keldeo and Shaman, I guess. This dude lets you pitch your hand and draw 7, absolutely broken. You know, it's Professor Juniper, but a dude, so sign me up. Next, we got 1 copy of Batterskull. It is a weapon that you search with Stoneforge Mystic, which is basically a creature, so that's pretty insane, because that basically breaks a lot of, like, you know, gaming conventions or whatever, because they probably made Stoneforge not intending to search creatures, but they fucked up and let this slip through the cracks. It is basically a 4/4 with Vigilance and Lifelink, and that's pretty cool. You can also give to Thalia, and then she's, like, riding a Steelix or something. I'm not really sure what a Batterskull is, but I like it. 1 copy of N, not my favorite full art. I think the Noble Victories, I believe it's Noble Victories, don't cite me on that. The Noble Victories N is my favorite full art, but this is nice too, and it's only about 20 bucks. The Noble Victories one is quite a bit more, but N, of course, both players shuffle their hands and draw equal to their prizes. Usually you're just playing this to disrupt your opponent because you would much rather be playing Sycamores or Archies or maybe even some of the air supporters you're running. It just depends on the game state, of course. We got 1 copy of the Dark Invader Anti-Change Punch. Just your general fare for an anti-change punch. Pay 2, sack a character, and then kill a early play. We got 2 copy of the Thunderdome Man. Now Thunderdome Man here, I may not be a big Star Wars nerd, but I know like a stormtrooper when I see one, and I know they're the bad guys. So this must be like the king of the stormtroopers, and obviously, you know, Thunderdome stormtrooper. You probably see what I'm trying to do here. Anyway, he's an early play. If you got the magic trash can in your clock, you can early play him out. He has the ability Force, which lets you pitch a card, pay 1, and then swap the position of 2 of your opponent's characters, which is pretty trolly and sometimes insane. Otherwise, when he comes into play, you draw 2, ditch 2, and stock 1 from top, and then your opponent can't burn during battles involving this card, which is pretty sweet. 1 copy of Guzma, which, of course, is a beautiful full art. I think it is my favorite full art, non-Pokemon, non-draw supporter in the game. Obviously, it's like a cracked up escape rope. You choose an opponent's bench Pokemon, only your bench Pokemon, and they become the active Pokemon. That is the short version. Insane card. Every Pokemon deck should be running some number of the Big G himself. 2 copies of Ghost Ogre, our next hand trap. Basically, when your opponent's card effect activates, you can pitch this, destroy that card. Interesting thing about this is it will actually negate the effect of a continuous spell or trap, which is nice. Otherwise, it just kind of like gets rid of a piece on their field. Generally, people will save their Ghost Ogre for something like Electromite against Pen Magicians, because they'll still get the Electromite effect, but they will lose the Link Arrows, which is super important for a Pendulum deck. So yeah, Ghost Ogre is pretty good, I think. 2 copies of Effect Veiler. I'm still working on getting my other copies of Hand Traps, but Effect Veiler is pretty good. I like it against Trickstar because if they open Candina, you just play the Veiler and they just pass their turn. It is also similarly good against Electromite. There is a debate on Ghost Ogre versus Veiler for Electromite, because this denies the plus Electromite gives, while Ghost Ogre just stops Electromite from providing the links. So it's just kind of like whichever you prefer stopping, I suppose. It's probably deck dependent. But I'm just running 2 of those hand traps because that's all I have right now. 2 copies of the Bad Dad himself, the Dark Invader. Now, he has come in play, draw 2, ditch 1, and then he has a climax combo to essentially give himself, ooh, excuse me, holy, on reverse burn, on attack burn, and give himself a little power to make that reverse easier. And if that wasn't insane enough, he also has the same force ability that the Stormtrooper King had. So he pretty much guarantees his own reverses, which makes him basically a better Mikasa from Attack on Titan in every single way. Next, we have 1 copy of Fisherman, the final supporter of the deck. In Archie, it's an Archie's deck, so you run a bit light on the supporters because you don't want them stuck in your hand because you want to play the Archie's turn 1. Fisherman allows you to just add 4 energies from your grave to your hand. Really good for cycling your energies back and just putting them on the field immediately with Blastoise, and then you can get it back with Via Seeker, of course. Next card, Umezawa's Jite. I play this card because it is my personal theory that if you compare the art of Thalia to the art of Jite, you could see the hand holding the blade, and then you see a hand here. So I think it might actually be Thalia in this card art. That's pretty much the only reason I'm running the Jite. It would be flavor fail not to play the Jite. So that's why you're on the 1 Jite. Next, we have 3 copies of Dragon Ravine, because you want to hit this bitch as fast and as hard as possible to set up your Dark Worm Destrudo combo. Next, we got 4 copies of Ultra Ball. I think the golden Ultra Ball looks like vomit. Don't even talk to me about it. Ultra Ball's a staple, searches your Pokemon. Obviously really good with Archies as well because you pitch cards to activate. Next, we are running like 10 planes or something. I don't know. I think it's 10 planes. I think it's 23 lands. You can do the math yourself. Obviously, the deck will add up to 60 cards, so you could just take all the other cards I show you and then sub in that many planes. You're playing a mono white deck, so you want some number of white cards. 4 copies of VS Seeker. It's expanded. You play this card. It's broken. It lets you play less supporters and play more good cards, like VS Seeker. 3 copies of Terraforming to, of course, search your Dragon Ravine. And in some cases, you're actually searching the Spiral Resort with this card. So, yeah, Terraforming's pretty good. You know, any field spell deck's going to be playing that card. 3 copies of Battle Compressor. Basically sets up your combos. This is how you get your Blastoise in the grave. This is how you get your Executor, your Archies into the grave. In the cases where you have the VS Seeker. Insane card. Please print a full art Pokemon. We got a single copy of Spiral Mission Assault. This card has a really confusing to read on field effect that basically translate to when Spiral destroys something, you draw a card, and then as an engrave effect where you banish it from the grave to special a Spiral from your hand. That's generally what you'll be using this for 9 times out of 10 if you're ever using it. Next, we got 4 copies of the Big Bad Hans level 3. Now, what does Big Bad Hans here do? Well, he has the Baller Check and Wreck, or, I'm so sorry, the Baller Spark ability, which is when the damage from this card is canceled, you mill the top card of your deck and burn your opponent for that card's level +1. He can also give himself additional power and soul by pitching a card, so you just absolutely style on your opponent. Beautiful card. Ah! No. Next, we're dealing with 2 copies of Clifford the Big Red Car. Now, Spiral Gear Clifford here, he He is basically a premature burial for spiral monsters, and then the revived monster cannot be destroyed by battle, which is pretty cool, honestly. Clifford here is searchable with quick fix and is usually combo extender. That's why you're playing it. We got 4 copies of Wasteland, so you can pop your opponents like really annoying lands or they're really expensive lands and be like, ha, nice underground sea. That was a 400 investment that just went into the trash. That's what I like to say whenever I wasteland an expensive land. You got some copies of Super Energy Retrieval, or Superior Energy Retrieval, my mistake. You pitch 2, you get 4 energies back. Really good in the deck, obviously. I shouldn't have to explain that. 1 copy of Spiral Resort. Not sure why this wasn't with the field spells, but, you know, live and let live. Spiral Resort makes your spirals untargetable. You tutor a spiral at the end of... or not at the end of the turn. You tutor a spiral once per turn as an activated effect, and then at the end of the turn you have to shuffle back a monster in your grave into the deck or Spiral Resort is destroyed. Insane. Wish this card was at 3. And now for that spice. That spice of life that to me is keeping the deck alive or at least fun. We got 3 copies of Different Dimension Reincarnation. This is what I meant when I said it wasn't a big deal that Quick Fix removed itself. This is what I meant when Sleeper was a combo extender. This card is absolutely insane. You're actually going to want your Destrudo to make a Power Tool Dragon a lot of the time to actually fish this card from your deck. Which is why you're on the 3 copies. And then it's a discard outlet, which is always good with spirals because that's a play extender. And then this will get back like a master plan or a quick fix or just really anything that you want to set up. So this card is actually amazing, but you know, you can only run 3, so that's kind of depressing. Next in Star Wars, we got 3 of the Bad Mama Jamma. Hans Christian Andersen, and The Rock. Now, what do Hans and The Rock do? It's got this first ability I've never actually used because it only applies to green characters, though I guess I could use it with the Golden God. Let's see. It gives green characters like 2k attack, and then when you trigger a climax, they get 1 soul and 4k power. So I guess I just never really thought about that one. But generally, he is the healer of the deck. Hans and The Rock get shit done. And you know they get shit done because they go on a suicide mission, right? Hans and The Rock are flying around in the spaceships or whatever because it's Star Wars. And then they pay for, sack a number of cards on the field except for themselves, and then burn for the number of cards they sacked during the Encore step. You always get the perfect battle damage math with this card because you know what you need to sack. They're at 3-6, sack 1 guy, 3-2, sack 2 guys, etc. Next, we got 4 copies of Trainer's Mail. Burn through your deck and find your Battle Compressors, find your Ultra Balls, find your whatever you need. You can even grab supporters with this because supporters are trainers. Great card for a deck like this because you're basically a combo deck, and pretty much only combo decks play Trainer's Mail. Rule of thumb. 2 copies of Fighting Fury Belt. As I mentioned earlier, you use it on Kirim to favorably trade with Zorks, so that's pretty cool. It's also just a good card. You make your Wishy-Washy like 2500 HP. Please make a full art of this card. Next, we got 4 copies of the Rishadan Court. So, this is like auxiliary copies of Wasteland where you get to make fun of your opponent for playing expensive lands because you just port them down and then they'll never get to use them again. It's insane. 1 copy of Rhoda. You're playing 6 warriors that are all, you know, pretty integral and important to your strategy, so of course you're playing the Rhoda. We got 4 of the Hans Climax here. mission, you know, it's pretty good. You run it for the combo, obviously. Not a whole lot to say there. Reborn the Monster. This card's unbanned, so you may as well just play it. It's so free, and it's so, you know, good, I guess. It's a play extender for every deck. It's hard to say you actually need this card when you have stuff like the Spiral Trap, but obviously Monster Reborn's still a good card. Still going to play it. 3 copy of Caracas. Caracas here is pretty cool. They're like more expensive versions of Plains, as you can see by the ability to add a white to your mana pool. And then you can return legendaries to the hand. This is good in clearing the way for your Thalia by removing their legendaries. And it's also pretty strong for yourself by allowing yourself to bounce Thalia to absolutely style on your opponent and humiliate them. Next, we got Foolish Burial, an excellent card to use with Destrudo, Dark Worm, and Quick Fix, and maybe some other like weird combos in between. Of course, you're going to play Foolish. 1 Choice Band. Excellent card. Just gives you 30 more damage against EXs and GXs. Gives you that little bit more reach, you know, for your Keldeos. Because it's kind of hard to actually knock out a lot of stuff with Keldeo. So the less energy you have to work to put on Keldeo, the better. 1 for 1. Say that 18 times fast, am I right? Let me get a like and a comment from everyone who said that 18 times fast. Searches your drone. Usually you're searching Quick Fix, and then Quick Fix is getting the drone, and that's how you're starting your combo. Obviously a strong card. Soul Charge, it's like the best Monster Reborn ever. Of course you're running it. Computer Search, it's expanded. You gotta run Computer Search. It's pitch to search your deck for a card. You know, worst case, you Computer Search for Sycamore. Wow, that's broken. 2 Spiral Mission Rescue. It has a on-field effect to salvage spirals, and then it has a in-grave effect to banish itself to special a spiral from the grave. Pretty insane card. Next, we got a couple copies of Cavern of Souls, the spooky fucking land. Cavern's a pretty interesting one, I guess. Well, I guess it's not that interesting, actually. I'm just, like, blowing shit out my ass at this point. You're calling human, so your Thalia is uncounterable. Yeah, you're calling whatever you need it to be, but generally you're calling human because, yet again, how many times do I have to say it? Thalia Turbo. Next we got some Synchro Monsters. We're dealing with 1 Power Tool Dragon to search the DDRs, 1 Black Rose to fuck the field, and 1 Ancient Fairy Dragon as both a combo extender and a field spell remover, I guess. Obviously, you have your own field spells and your opponent has field spells, so you can usually benefit off of the Ancient Fairy Dragon pretty well, and the special summon effect from hand is nothing to scoff at either, especially turn 1, where skipping your battle phase does not matter. 2 copies of Rough Seas. Of course, you're playing a stadium in your deck. It lets you deny your opponent their stadium, such as the ever so problematic Skyfield. And while Parallel City would probably be a lot of people's go-to when building a deck, you sadly cannot utilize Parallel City that well in this deck because you would just be gimping your own Pokemon's attacks, which is the other effect of Parallel City, which a lot of people probably don't even realize. Next, we got your Exceeds. We got a single copy of Princess Sprite and a single copy of Galaxy Tomahawk. Generally, you're making the Tomahawk by making a level 7 Synchro and then exceeding that Synchro with Master Plan. And then you make a bunch of tokens on the field, and usually you can either go into like a Sacagawea, Skull Dread, or like a fully linked Tri-Gate Wizard play. And then Princess Sprite, it's just, you know, sometimes you randomly get a +1 off of it, and generally speaking, it's there to safely put a revived Quick Fix back into the grave. It doesn't come up that much, but I'd rather run it than not, honestly. Next, we got 4 Who's Your Daddy? The climax for the Dark Invader level 3. Who's Your Daddy is, of course, a red stock soul, so that's pretty cool. Stock souls are always good. In Blastoise, you're going to be running a shit ton of water, so I got 11 water energies right here. Now for the Link monsters, there's a lot of Links, because, you know, Spiral's a Link deck. You got 2 Double Helix. He's treated as Super Agent on field or in grave, which is amazing. And you call the top card of your opponent's deck. If you call the type correctly, you get to special something in a zone he points to, or you add a Spiral to your hand, which is nice, because if they remove this in response, you still get the plus by searching a Spiral to your hand. Decode Talker, of course, generally what you're doing with this is you're getting Master Plan, and then you're going into Decode Talker for an immediate, like, plus 1,000. Other staples, you're playing Proxy and Firewall Dragon, the big boy and the biggest boy. These cards are just good. Well, Firewall Dragon more so the Proxy Dragon. But Proxy Dragon generally gives you access to play extensions that end in your Tri-Gate Wizard field, so that's why you're playing that. Also, left-right isn't a terrible link. And Firewall Dragon is just broken, but you guys already know that. Borolo Dragon and Sacagawea Scoldred. These guys are just pretty good rank 4s. Or, sorry, not rank 4s, Link 4s. Holy, what year is it? Like 2012? Like for the 2012 reference. So Scoldred here, he's like a play extender. He lets you dig for your sideboard pieces. Usually he's better going second if you're trying to OTK, because he just gives you that extra reach with the draw for bottom 3. And then Borolo Dragon here just kind of outs everything. It's really stupid. And then next you got Tri-Gate, you got Ib, and you got Link Spider. I basically played these 2 just, you know, for access to Tri-Gate. I can go over that combo later in another video if this video gets like a reasonable number of likes, like 5,000 likes, I guess. If this gets 5,000 likes, I will explain the combos for the Spiral decks, or maybe even all the decks. So yeah, just throw up some likes if you want to see something like that. And then finally, the last card of all 4 decks, 1 Lightning Energy. Of course, you're playing it for the Black Huron EX. What can I say? It is basically the Garnet of the deck, plus 1 for Garnets. Woo! Okay, guys, that was amazing. We just made YouTube history. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Make sure to tune in next week for when I post something, I guess. I am super exhausted and dehydrated right now, so I'm going to make myself a tall, cold glass of water. But I will be seeing you guys later. Thank you so much for watching, and this is Too Broke for Skill out.